We actually have two speakers for this final presentation. We have Timothy Tan. Timothy is the head enterprise IT and mobile at Samsung Electronics Singapore. And Donald Lum is senior vice president and head of group technology at SATS. The title of the presentation, Digitalisation, Augmentation of the Logistics Workforce. So Timothy and Donald, it's all yours. Thank you very much.
Test. Hi. Okay, cool. Sorry, this is kind of new. I've not been on stage for close to 2 years already. Okay, so anyway, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining this session with ITAP with us. So as introduced, my name is Timothy. I look after IT and mobile in Samsung. Okay, so I guess some of you are wondering what in the world is Samsung doing on this stage here. Firstly, consumer electronics company. That's probably what the first thought that comes to your mind, which is true. That's something that we have been doing. However, what today we'd like to talk about is around the topic of digitalization and augmentation, utilizing mobile devices. Okay, and that's something that I think in COVID became a very, very hot topic. How do we plug the workforce into a digitalized age? Some people use the term digital twinning, and yet use it to augment this same worker to do a lot more. Okay, so well, today I have with me on stage one of my partners or customer, Donald from SATS. So interestingly enough, we actually started off on a project, I think a couple of years ago, 2017, around what you see down there, that basically the watch, and basically utilizing the watch, which was the first in the world project, in order to augment and send data and transmit data to the technical RAM folk. And that was where we started, but that's not where we actually end. What we've moved on towards now is actually further collaboration, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so anyway, here's Donald, and he's head of Group Technology and Innovation at SATS. So primarily the guy that does all the interesting projects. So we want to tap his brain today on how we can actually start projects like this. Okay, so hi Donald. It's been a long time.
Timothy. Hello everyone. I echo Timothy's thoughts. It's quite surreal that finally we can stand on the stage and do a presentation with so many people. And thank you for attending these sessions. So I think just a little bit about who SATS is and about myself. I think SATS, I'm not sure if you're aware, we are Asia's largest ground handler, the largest ground handler in Singapore and the in-flight caterer. So I think before COVID, we are one of the Singapore largest workforce as well. We employ up to about 16,000 people in a varied of industries. So ground handling primarily, and of course, in-flight catering. So I think what we have started, it's during the 2015 journey together. You know, aviation industry is such an old industry. As far as the planes has invented, the aviation processes has never changed. You can see how beautiful Changi when you walk into the airport is. But if you go downstairs, it's pretty much the same across the world. Yeah, you still have the number of same people moving your bags and cargo. You still have the same number of people providing your meals and so on. Maybe I should remove my mask.
Take out the mask.
Okay. No, I think the picture looks better. My face looks a bit aged these days. No, I was just kidding. Well, so in 2015, SATS embarked on the digitalization journey. So what we did was really wanted to convert some of the more manual processes and putting in digital to reduce the amount of paperwork. And of course, the focus then and the rage of the keyword then was productivity. I'm sure you agree and you remember since the 2015 days, it's all about productivity. So we did the same thing. We wanted to make sure we gain the most out of productivity through digitalization. So one of the big projects that we have done then was just to digitize using consumer equipments. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. What we have done is we have electronic schedule to schedule people to do the work. Yeah, but you know, the folks come to do the work, they go to a control center and they print out their long schedules. I mean, we call it the toilet roll for this department because it really literally rolls out like a toilet roll. And inside it just states which bay that you have to go to, which flight you're going to service, the departure time, the arrival time, and what you need to do. And you know, flights never arrive and never depart on time, and sometimes there's emergency. So first problem statement, very manual in printing. Second, we actually believe that the flight, or we believe in our workers to do their work because the flight departs on time. Once the flight departs on time means they have done their job. So we actually have no visibility on the ground whether they are at the bay servicing the flight. In God we trust, actually. Okay, by faith, they actually do it. Now, when flights get disrupted and they turn back, suddenly you can hear a lot of jamming on the radio for walkie-talkie. Why? Because they're asking, where are you? Are you near this bay? Are you on off? Are you on break? Because I see you on break. Can you please go to this? So there are a lot of communications flying around, visibility are lost. So that's why what we did was simply just take all the digital scheduling of our staff and put it into the watch. And with the watch, it's GPS. All right, that's one. So immediately we have a control center that we can see all our stuff and all our resources being deployed across the whole airport. And that's what we did. And that's all. And because of that, it went on to receive a lot of accolades. I think this is a demonstration of how a consumer product can be deployed for track and trace and visibility across the airport. So that's essentially this way. And that started our journey with Samsung.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think it was a very, very interesting project. I had the privilege of being a small part of that project. But then, since then, it's been a while. So what have your team been actually doing these days now that mobility is something everybody is talking about? So I'm very curious what actually you've been doing now.
Thanks. I think this is a LogiSYM forum. So I think let's focus a bit on the logistics sector. You know, logistics sector is a very hard sector. It's laborious. There's a lot of processes that we need to adhere, especially as, you know, SATS is the ground handler, the cargo handler of Changi Airport. We have transshipments, we have shipments coming in and out of Singapore. And the ability to gain track and trace information on real time is important. So what have we been working on ever since then? Now, at 2015 to 17, 2018, we were all busy digitalizing. We were transforming our operations using digital tools, right? And out of it, what comes is the amount of data that we are collecting. We realized that, look, we have so much data that is across the entire operations. And now what we have been focusing on is harnessing that capability, building different capability to harness that set of data. So with the visibility of end-to-end ground handling, we can actually see cargo movements, we can see passenger movements, we can see baggage movements seamlessly by just piecing all the data together. So we are now focusing more on capability building projects that we are doing right now. Yeah, so and this will continue, right? This will continue because with that capability building, you gain that visibility. It really will speed up your operation, or I mean, at least you have new capabilities acquired.
Yeah. So I think in the process of capability building, especially technology-wise, a lot of new stuff needs to be tried out. There is new systems, new solutions, new hardware even. So maybe you can share with us what are some of the considerations your team actually takes when we talk about adopting these new technologies around business optimization.
Well, so we all say data is the new gold. Some say data is the new oil. But we all have to be very cognizant that as we gain all this data, as we possess all this capability of harnessing the data protection is ever more important, right? Over the last 2 years, since COVID, you have seen the amount of cybersecurity attacks on every sector, all right? From every sector, literally every sector. I don't think we are being spared on this. And every time they can get a hold on your data, I think that it's where you're going to lose and get a lot of problems. Now, supply chain risk is what we focus on very, very intently because SATS is an upstream and a downstream player. We take your cargo, we send off your cargo. We are an upstream, downstream player. We have all the data. You can imagine if you are compromised, we will affect our customers. We will affect my customers' customers. All right, so this is one area I think we put in a lot of focus on how to make sure our data is securely protected. Now, I'm sure all of you here have been involved in the mobile digital kind of projects Smartwatches, mobile devices are getting more prevalent nowadays as one of the IoT devices. How to protect them is also another key concern that we have. Yeah, so I think it's important for us to put this into perspective and really remind ourselves that while we plow on digitalization, the protection of all these devices and data, it's really important.
Yeah, and I agree with you. So one of the things that we get a lot in Samsung, because we are taking now the role of implementer or solution provider, is now with so many devices that are literally scattered everywhere, literally, because they are mobile by definition. How does traditional IT actually take it and secure it such that the data inside these devices can be secured? What if these devices get lost? And that's what IT's biggest concern is. So I believe in such a scenario, that was something that SETS took it, and together working with us, came up with certain sets of security procedures, hardware, to address this issue and around data security.
Yeah, I think importantly, what we are looking for is security by design. Now, this is something we all have to put in mind. You have to go back and tell your IT people, all right, whatever solution that you put in place, security by design now has to be the prime consideration. It cannot be an afterthought. All right, so in 2015, while we went for the Samsung smartwatch, why did we choose a Samsung smartwatch and not a LG smartwatch or a Huawei smartwatch or an X brand smartwatch? The reason is because there is solutions called EMM, Enterprise Mobile Management Software, that you can manage your mobile phones, you can manage watches. And at that time, Samsung is the only one that has EMM for their watches. I can't find any on the market. Now, what is EMM? It's actually a software that I can wipe out if the watches get lost or the phones get lost. I can do special installation to make sure that I don't install other software other than the one that is required for work. And you know, we deal with 16,000 staff, and during their breaks, they like to call their mother, they like to call their grandmother, they like to call their girlfriends, they like to call everybody. So you can imagine if we allow them to do call, the battery will run out. I will incur additional high cost for calling. And of course, these are secondary. The primary consideration is if you lose those devices, the data inside is going to cause you a lot of problem. So we must have the mechanism to be able to wipe them off instantly. So I think that's the consideration that we have when we pick hardwares and we pick solution design. It has to be built from the design. And another good thing about what we pick Samsung is because of the chip. All right, at that time, they had chips that is already security by design. So anything that happens, any hacking happens on the device, the chip will disable the entire device. So these are some of the features we look very closely when we pick for security. So that's one consideration I can share with you why we did that.
Thanks, Donald. And basically, I'm not here to do a pitch from Samsung, but typically I would suggest whenever we go about implementing a mobile project, regardless of the device you pick, security by design is critical. And all your plans have to start all the way down to the chipset and all the way up to your cloud solution. And security should be the baseline and should not be an afterthought, which unfortunately it is for a lot of IT systems nowadays. Okay, moving on. So we have actually worked together, I think almost 5 years now. So want to actually ask you a question in relation to when you went into the digitalization journey, what was actually the greatest impact that you all saw, and what was your experience with basically this journey and where you are right now?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, and I heard some of the speakers just now that session. As one question really came to my mind, or one point one of the speakers really echoed. It's not just about the ROI, all right? It's not just really about the ROI. It's about the experience that you are going to deliver to the whole operations to ensure that the people adopts it. And we have a lot of experience to share with you on this. All right, adoption of technology can never be a top-down, right? So that's one. And of course, creating an impact to make sure that the solution, when you roll out to the guys, it's safe, it makes their work faster and easier. These are two very paramount considerations that you must have, besides, of course, the usual ROI that it gives you. All right, that will really drive the adoption. So the projects that you do or we do really have to focus on what will make the job easier for our people, what will make the job faster and safer for our people. And that is for our people. Now, for the company, you have to also think about what are the capabilities that you will derive out of this. I'll give you an example. In 2017, immediately after the smartwatch project, we launched into another transformation project using augmented reality to load container cargoes onto the belly hold. That was one project we did almost immediately after 2017. And why? Or purely for enhancing safety and of course productivity, turning digital and paper into digital. When we did that project, it was really just for loading of containers. And we were glad to invest in it because it turned out to have other features that we can put on it. For example, we now put in ability to take pictures to make sure that the locks are raised in the aircraft to ensure that the container don't move around when you put the container in. That was all not in the original design, but it evolves and it gains additional capability. All right, so it's important to also understand what kind of capability can be enhanced and built once you have that solution. So I think that's another important consideration for you, to think about what are the new capabilities that you're going to acquire from having such a solution, and it's not just purely for productivity or ROI.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Technology for technology adoption's sake, I don't believe that is actually important. However, technology must be useful if we are going to actually use it in the real world scenario. So that's the same approach we ourselves in Samsung, we recommend. I'm not out to sell you the first device that comes along, but to make sure that whatever you are adopting has a high chance of success. And that's actually why we actually work with the likes of SET. We like to push the boundaries. That's interesting. But most of the time is the simple things that get done. So that's from our perspective.
Yeah, and one more new things that we are working on is through all these digitalizations, we are beginning to see the conversions of mobile devices. For example, these days we are busy now trying to look at how do we converge the mobile devices that our people is carrying on the ground. You know, they have walkie-talkie. Now you give them a handphone, and then you got watches, then you got other devices. So as we saddle our people with all these digital solutions, we have to be very mindful of how to combine them to get them into one device. So I think what we are working with Samsung right now, which is a very interesting project, I can tell you, is how to combine a walkie-talkie into a mobile device. I think that's not new, right? But I tell you what's new. The ideas of my people, they always like things like, okay, when I use a walkie-talkie, it's always a press of a button. I don't want to open the phone, open the app, and press the button. You know, when the flight is going to be late, I don't have time to do all these things. So then we have to really give our people the capability of being able to press a button in order to use the walkie-talkie while the rest of the other functions are running in the mobile devices. And that's where we are working with Samsung because I think their devices gives the capability of doing that, because they have a very strong R&D team that is ready to respond to this. So I think we are very glad to be partnering them to be able to do some of those things that are first in, or rather, maybe not unheard of, but rather new in the aviation sector. Before we come out here, we were just talking on the Flip. You know, they have this Samsung Flip. We were even discussing how can I use the Flip for operation even possible, because it's small, it's easy to carry. But we tried it out for a while, but we find that the Flip, when you flip down the in front, you know, the in-front display screen cannot interact. It's just for display. And then they tell me, no. Actually, they have the API or the APK or whatever, the SDK for you to do the development so you can interact with it. So I think this is important because then you have a partner that is ready to interact, ready to work with you on the R&D. And in the age of digitalization, these ideas cannot take long to gestate and cannot take long to deliver. We need to get people to work it on a concept so that we can get it tested quickly. I don't know whether you agree, but this is important for us, and this is some of our measure of success with them because we could quickly test out some of those things and easily so that we can prove the concept.
Okay, thanks, Donald. So I think in light of the time, just one final question, and basically it's to the audience here. I think your team has I think it's a brilliant thing with working with your team. They always come up with interesting ideas to push Samsung to do more. But I think for advice to all the other industry leaders here, what would you recommend when it comes to choosing technology and choosing partners? What would you recommend and consideration-wise, excluding Samsung, of course, but then primarily from that perspective of basically a technology consumer.
Yeah, definitely. This is not a pitch for you, lah, Samsung. But really, okay, sorry if I sounded too pitchy for Samsung. But I mean, these are interesting things that we work together. So I mean, I don't mind sharing. So I think the question is really pertinent. Number one, to us, I think after working on digitalization, transformation, innovation for such a while, I realized the ecosystem support of a partner is very important. You know, innovation project sometimes builds on an idea, and an idea, when it gets translated down to implementation, you suddenly realize this vendor don't have this, that vendor don't have that. I need to pull in so many multiple vendors just to get a solution working. So the ability to find a vendor that can chain up all this solution end to end is important, because the level of integration, the level of ease of management, and the ease of communications will be easy. But it's not so easy to find those vendors. So if you can find a vendor with good ecosystem support, that would be excellent, and that will really save out a lot of your time. The second, of course, don't go for too fanciful technologies. We can share some of those things that we think it may work, but it doesn't really quite necessary on the ground. You may not need to have fanciful technologies to get the work done. For example, even long before we are trying to think about whether 5G is useful for some of our operations, but is 5G really useful for some of those operations which I think today 4G can work? So these are some of those thoughts that we challenge ourselves. It doesn't mean that it's fanciful, it's state of the art. It will definitely be useful for us. We have to take things into perspective, take into operations into consideration, and of course, balance what we need versus what can work and what cannot work. So I think important is look at operations and look at the business and look at the adoption, and then we decide the technology on that. Yeah, so that's I can talk more if you're interested to find out.
Yeah, and I will encourage you all to actually pick his brain, because there are a lot of interesting anecdotes that he actually has in the extensive implementation experience he has gone through. So anyway, thank you. We are kind of running out of time, and hope that this conversation today was helpful to all of you. I want to thank you for seeing your face to face again, and hopefully this continues. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Donald.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So we do have a few minutes for questions for Timothy and Donald. Would you like to ask questions after my presentation? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Ivan from Trames. We are a freight technology solutions provider. So this majority of today we were talking about change, transformation. In the last segment, we were talking about fail fast. So it's very heartening to see a very nice success story, right? Especially locally. So congratulations for that. I wanted to ask, is it a function of volume and scale, right? Because when you have an organization as large as SATS, then and I was surprised to find out that Samsung could customize the phones into a walkie-talkie and things like that. Does it mean that, can you do that only with scale? Or for some of the organizations around this room, we don't have that level of scale, right? So how would we then be able to leverage?
I share my perspective, and I think you should answer this, right? So now, in the smartwatch project that we did, it was just only for 130 people. It wasn't for 1,300 or 13,000. No, it wasn't. But they were willing to do it for us. Well, at least I gave them a lot of hell, a lot of problems initially. Yeah, so until the account manager is now no longer with them. So I'm just kidding. But what I'm trying to tell you here is, for us, I think it's scale, I think is important for them. I agree. But I think they're looking at much more the use case and how it what the relevance of the device that can be used on that use case. So for me, I think I'm very heartened that they are willing to take on this. In fact, they really put in their resources all the way from Korea to support this smartwatch, because in their mind and in our mind, we could never think of using a consumer product to become operationalized. And why did we use a watch? You probably in your mind, you ask, why do you use a watch? Why can't you just use a phone? Yes, we did. We considered that. But because the 130 people need to operate heavy machinery, they drive around the airport. We don't want them to use a phone while they are driving and they get into accidents. So we decided to use a watch. And we went into a lot of issues with the watch because the real estate is just so small but we need to put in a lot of information. So what did we do? If you look at the video, we actually got everyone involved and we told them, okay, you only have this space. You want all your information, think of how you want it to be represented. And the people came up with the idea of using icons. At that time, emojis, icons were all the rage, right? With the poly students. So we got some students to think about such things and they decided to use emojis and icons to represent the type of work they need to do. For example, one of the work is they have to go to the aircraft and empty the lavatory. You know, the toilet, we have a truck to go there and empty the toilet. So how do we show this work? Is a toilet sign. So they know that, oh, I need to empty the water and lavatory. And some of them is power. They need to go to the aircraft, connect the gen power, because aircraft park stationary, they need power. So they use a power icon to show that they have to do this. So these are all thought processes, iterations of design thinking that we run together with Samsung. Yeah, so okay, then you can answer.
Okay, thanks, Donald. So to address the other side from the supplier standpoint, I think skill is always very important. I think from manufacturing standpoint, anything, especially consumer products, skill is important. Customization also is important. So how do we marry the two? Because one is basically a standard device that we can produce thousands or millions of. The other is when you have devices that are designed specifically for one and all. So I think to address that issue, and Samsung has the same manufacturing challenges any manufacturing has. We do need large volume. But what the approach we take is, one, proper planning. We found out that with enough discussion with the customer, with enough ideas from them, it is very, very possible to take a mass device and tune for their purpose. There will be delta, there will be small changes. That's probably the things that need to be addressed. And usually what we do for scalability reasons, at least on device, we address them with software. So from Samsung perspective, the firmware is flexible because software can be customized to any level. And I will not go into it, but that we have technology that allows us to build applications on top of what we call standard or stock firmware, so that you get both benefits. One, of continuous upgrades as they follow the security upgrade cycle, yet with enough flexibility to change the device specifically for customer usage. And platform is important. So when we talk about security baked right into the chipset, that is essential. That is not something that is negotiable. But once you move further up, that's where the flexibility or the customization comes in. So to answer your question, the technology is available today where we can customize to even a small deployment versus a large deployment. And I would tell you also, if I have a solution, I call it Nox Configure. You just need one device to be customized. I can do it for you. So that is the extent of the technology available today. Yeah, hope you answers the question.
I'm Joe Lombardo. Again, I echo Ivan's congratulations on what you've achieved. Donald, a question for you. Obviously, what you've done is impressive in terms of the concepts, in terms of rollout. How long did it take you from concept to rollout in terms of time? And how much faster was this rollout helped by having a good collaboration with Samsung in terms of the energy and the synergy that you achieved together?
Well, for the sake of academic sharing, we had a long gestation with this project initially. I think the discussion took 1 year just to come up with talking about the concept, arguing over phone or watch, and arguing over design and stuff like that. So, I mean, these are all the pain any IT organization will go through. All the IT people are useless. So what I'm trying to say is, it took 1 year to talk about it. But when we nailed down the requirements, we got the partner, we did it in 4 months. From coding, getting a watch, sorting out the connectivity issues, designing, and many iterations of getting it tested. We launched it in the matter of 4 months.
4 intensive months, but yeah, 4 months.
4 months. And I tell you, this is not just a watch, because the watch pairs with a bone conduction headset. At that time, everybody was asking, what is a bone conduction headset? A lot of people don't even know what is a bone conduction headset. And we actually had it pair this phone with the bone conduction headset. And when the pairing doesn't quite work, we call Samsung. We don't call the bone conduction headset company because we bought it off Amazon. So there was no support. So we just threw everything at Samsung. Yeah, and they did it. I mean, thanks to them, they acceded to my request and they actually delivered. So I think there was an intense 4 months. It doesn't really need to take that long, if you ask me, because at that time, it was just an initial project that we had all in mind. So if I could really go back and unwind the time, I think we can all do that in a matter of 6 months with proper planning, with proper vendor support. And 4 months was because we had to work backwards from a launch. And this is how some of my users have planned. They work backwards from a launch because they say, okay, guys, on December 26th, we are going to have a big launch to tell our customers we are moving to this. So that's where we all had to plan backwards.
Okay, do you have any final questions for either Timothy or Donald? If not, let's show our great appreciation for the.
Thank you.